What's going on? My name is Chandler Hampton. I'm a land specialist and agent with Mossy Oak Property, Southeast Land and Wildlife here in the great state of Alabama. And today we're going to talk about the 5 things that you need to know before you start your search for your very first property here in Alabama. The first thing you need to think about before buying your first property in Alabama is what kind of property you're looking for. We have great timberland, we have rural farmland, even urban farmland in some places. We have recreational hunting properties, we have commercial development or things that could eventually be a commercial development. And then we also have small tracts that can make a great little, rural homesite or mini farm. But you've got to sit with yourself and talk about those things and see exactly what do I want. The biggest mistake that I see people do, and I get phone calls all the time, and they're just like, Chandler, what's the cheapest land I can buy right now? And unless somebody has a 1031 exchange where they've just sold a property and they need to roll right into something else, they just want something cheap that may or may not go up in value over the next 5 years, then I would highly recommend not just buying something because it's cheap. If it's cheap, it's probably cheap for a reason. We're going to talk about that here in a second. It's probably because it has horrible access or the timber's been cut off of it and it doesn't have any value other than the dirt itself, or a multitude of other things. So don't just buy land because it's cheap, but go into this process with an idea of this is what I want, this is why I need it, this is my budget, and then find a land agent like myself to help you meet those goals. The second thing you need to consider is access. Obviously, the best thing that you can do is find something that has road frontage. Not all properties that we're going to be looking at in Alabama, depending on your price range, is going to have great access. So we're going to need a great easement, a deeded easement, some form of access that has a road. We do not want to be landlocked in most cases. The only way that I would say, hey, okay, with this budget and you want this many acres, let's find something that's maybe landlocked at the moment. The only way I would say that that's okay is if there is a strong possibility of maybe even during the due diligence period being able to identify a way to make a permanent access into that land. It may be buying an adjoining parcel of land. It may be buying just a strip wide enough, a 30-foot, 50-foot wide strip of land from an adjoining landowner just to make you a road into the property. But I would typically suggest trying to find land that has road frontage because your value over time is going to grow up tremendously. If you're looking at something as an investment, do what I just said. Maybe find something that's landlocked, but that has the opportunity to buy a road or buy an adjoining parcel with that road frontage so that you can build a road in, and then you're going to make tenfold on what you paid for that property. But access is key. Access is key. I can't say it again. Access is key. Point number 3, waters and utilities. A lot of places in rural Alabama, you're going to be on the septic tank. So sewer, typically on the properties that we're looking at, is a non-issue. But we do need to get a perk test, and that might be something that you need to consider doing in your due diligence period. But water, a lot of times we do see public water even in the county. So that's going to be something that we're going to need to talk about for each property before we go out and look at it, or even right after when we have a list of questions and follow-up questions. Power is another thing. Power is a lot harder to get than water. Water, we can dig a well in most places, or at least on a lot of properties, wells are an option. Power, if we're, 800 yards off a county road and looking at a piece of property, power is going to be really expensive. It's not impossible to run power out there, but it's going to be really expensive if you want to build a barn dominium or a home site or have a cabin or do anything of that requires power. Solar is an option in some places. We have a property listed right now in Jackson County, Alabama, that is completely off the grid. It has no power run to it. It runs off of rainwater and has a generator and a solar panel combo, which is a great option for something small. I think it's like a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, just really little hunting cabin. But you've got to look at the utilities and water in addition to the road access, and then restrictions and zoning. Most properties really that we sell, especially some of our larger stuff, is going to be out in the middle of a county that doesn't have a ton of restrictions. most properties are not going to have a zoning issue until we get closer to those city limits and we start selling stuff like we have right now in Madison County, Alabama, just right outside of Huntsville. We have to look at zoning issues on every single one of those, and I'll go over it with you as a buyer. But zoning and restrictions, I have another property listed that has restrictions because it's in the city limits, and so there's even square footage restrictions as to what you can build, even though it's zoned agriculture. It's zoned agriculture, so you can build a barn dough even though you're in the city limits in that city, but it has to be a certain square foot, and you can't have mobile homes or anything like that unless it's put on a foundation. And so that's just things that you need to talk about with your agent and think of before you go into a contract with a property. The fifth and final thing that we're going to talk about today, and this is wildlife and recreational use. Now, we're going to talk in another video about lakefront properties. That's a 20-minute video at least. But wildlife and recreational use. You don't want to just buy a farm that's 40 acres that you think might have some deer on it. If you're an avid deer hunter, you're going to want to look at population densities of the wildlife populations. Does this county have a strong turkey population? Does this county have a whitetail population? Does the whitetail population have a good buck to doe ratio? How do I find those things? You can talk to us. We can put you in touch with a wildlife biologist, and different things like that. But overall, find you a land agent that works for Mossy Oak or a company alike that really they're probably going to have a really good idea of the populations of each different wildlife species that we have here in the state of Alabama. But if that's something that you want to do, or if you want to have an ATV trail, go, ride UTVs, ATVs with the family, something like that, that's a completely different thing. It doesn't matter if there's a strong wildlife population because you're probably going to run them off anyway, but that's something that we need to talk about. But at the end of the day, these are the 5 things, the property type, your access, utilities, what restrictions the property may have. Again, some rural properties don't have a lot of restrictions, but some do, and it's something that you need to consider before you buy the property. I would hate for you to buy a property and get into it and then be like, darn, I can't build what I thought I was going to be able to build here. And then consider the recreational potential as well as the investment potential. I don't want to ever put any of my clients into a property that in 5 years isn't going to be worth more than what they have in it. That's just me. So how I would do personally, and I'm not going to do anybody any way other than how I would do myself. But thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one, and I hope this was benefit. If you have any video ideas, any questions you have about the Alabama market, please put them in the comments below, and we'll make a video on that topic here in the future. But again, thank you so much, and God bless.